Have you ever wondered why someone who once valued your presence suddenly acts as if you don't exist? What if their silence isn't about you at all, but a reflection of their own discomfort with your growth? And what if, instead of seeing rejection, you could recognize these moments as hidden opportunities to rise stronger than before? Have you ever experienced someone shifting from being fully engaged to acting as if you no longer exist? One day they are talking, laughing, making plans, then suddenly nothing, no messages, no calls, just silence. But what if I told you this wasn't a coincidence? It was a decision, a silent choice they made without confrontation, without explanation. They simply vanished, leaving you questioning what went wrong. Yes, I'm talking about a kind of distance that feels personal, but often isn't. Some people disappear the moment they no longer need anything from you. Others step away because your growth unsettled them. And some that were never truly invested in the first place. But here's the truth. You don't need to chase, beg, or demand answers. The real power lies in understanding why it happens and refusing to take it personally. So why do people suddenly cut you off? And what does it really mean? Stay until the end, because the final insight will change the way you see everything. Before we dive in, let me share a story that perfectly illustrates this wisdom. The story of Ethan. Ethan was the kind of person everyone wanted to be around, kind, reliable, always ready to help. But one day, things changed. His messages were ignored. The friends who once valued his presence became distant conversations that once felt effortless now seemed forced and hollow. At first, he told himself, maybe they're just busy. But deep inside, a question lingered. Why are they ignoring me? Frustrated, Ethan sought guidance from his old mentor, Mr. Harris, a retired psychologist. Known for his insight, Sir Ethan sighed, I don't understand people who once appreciated me now act as if I don't exist. What did I do wrong? Mr. Harris smiled and handed Ethan a candle and a matchstick. Light this candle, he said. Ethan struck the match and soon the candle's flame flickered in the dimly lit room. Now Mr. Harris continued, bringing it close to the open window. Ethan did as instructed. Within seconds, a gust of wind extinguished the flame. Mr. Harris leaned back and said that, my boy, is why people ignore you. Ethan frowned. I don't understand, Mr. Harris chuckled. A small flame remains unnoticed and protected, but when it burns too brightly, it invites the wind. Ethan sat in silence as the realization sank in. People don't always ignore you because they dislike you sometimes. They ignore you because your growth makes them uncomfortable. You were once on their level, predictable, familiar, but when you evolve, improve, or rise beyond where they are, they start to feel small in your presence instead of growing with you. They step away. That night, Ethan made a decision. He stopped chasing explanations. He stopped shrinking himself to fit into spaces he had outgrown. He stopped feeling guilty for evolving beyond those who chose to remain the same. And in that moment, he found peace. Not in being ignored, but in understanding why it happened. He wasn't being rejected. He was simply rising. People don't always ignore you because you did something wrong. They ignore you because your growth forces them to confront their own stagnation. A candle that burns too bright will always make the wind restless. So don't dim your light just to stay visible to those who refuse to shine. Before we begin, if you find value in these insights, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. Let's begin one. They're testing your reaction. When people start ignoring you, it's easy to assume something went wrong. Maybe you upset them, maybe they lost interest, maybe they simply forgot. But sometimes the silence isn't an accident. It's a strategy. Some people deliberately withdraw not because they don't care, but because they want to see if you will chase them. One day, they're engaged, responsive, everything seems fine. The next, they disappear. No replies, no calls, just an unsettling, distant. Energy is not always neglect. Sometimes it's a test. They want to know how much do you care, how much effort will you put in, how much control do they have over you. The moment you start double texting, over-explaining, or anxiously asking what's wrong, they win. Because now they know their absence affects you. They've created an imbalance one way you feel. The need to prove your value while they sit back and watch this is a form of emotional leverage. Think of it like a tug of war. Imagine two people gripping opposite ends of a rope now. One of them suddenly lets go. If the other person is desperate to keep the game going, they'll lunge forward, pulling harder, trying to restore the connection. But what if they don't react? What if when the rope is dropped, they simply let it fall to the ground? The game is over. The one who tried to control the dynamic loses their power. And that's where true strength lies. Not in proving how much you care, but in refusing to be controlled by someone else's games. The Stoics understood this deeply. He who needs least from others is the most powerful. Real power comes from self-sufficiency, from not needing external validation. To feel whole when you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, and stop seeking approval from those who play mind games. You become untouchable. I once noticed this pattern with someone I considered close. Whenever I pulled back slightly, became busy, focused on my own growth, they would suddenly go cold at first. I assumed they were just preoccupied with their own life. But then I observed something. Each time I distanced myself, they withdrew completely, no effort, no reciprocation, so I decided to test it. I didn't chase, I didn't send extra texts, I didn't ask, hey, is something wrong? I just let the silence exist, and then something interesting happened. A few days later, they came back suddenly. They were warm, engaged, interested, like nothing had ever happened. That's when I understood they weren't pulling away because they didn't care. They were pulling away because they wanted to see if I would chase them, and because I didn't, they lost the upper hand. So what's the lesson here? When someone distances themselves to test your reaction, the most powerful response is no response at all. If their attention is conditional based on whether you will chase them, then they were never truly invested in the first place. Let them go. A connection built on emotional games is not a connection worth keeping. And remember, attention should be mutual, not tested. If someone is playing games, let them just don't play along. 2, they no longer benefit from you in life. We all crave connection, genuine, meaningful relationships built on trust, respect, and mutual appreciation. But not every relationship is built on those foundations. Some people stay close to you, not because of who you are, but because of what you provide. And the moment they no longer benefit from that connection, they disappear at first. It feels like a sudden shift. One day they are warm, engaging, making plans. The next, there is a cold, unspoken distance. No calls, no replies, just silence. And you find yourself asking the inevitable question, what did I do wrong? But here's the truth. This was never about you. Some people were never truly invested in you as a person. They were invested in what you could offer. Maybe it was your support when they needed a listening ear. Connections that opened doors for them, generosity, whether emotional, financial, or through your time, or even just the way your presence made them feel. But the moment they no longer need these things, they leave without a second thought. It's human nature to assume that relationships, friendships, partnerships, even family bonds are built to last. But not everyone in your life is meant to stay. Some people are merely passing through, taking what they can and moving on. Think of it like a power outlet. Some people attach themselves to you like a device charging its battery. As long as they're gaining energy, they stay connected. But once they feel fully charged, or worse, find a better source, they unplug and disappear, leaving you wondering what changed. And that's why some people vanish without warning. It's not that they suddenly stop caring, it's that they never truly cared in the first place. Not about you as a person, only about the energy they could drain from you. This is where Stoic wisdom comes in. Epic teachers once said, attach yourself to what is true, not to those who are temporary. That's the key. We create our own suffering when we attach our self-worth to people who are only meant to pass through our lives. The right people, they won't leave. Just because they no longer need something from you, they stay because they value who you are, not just what you provide. I once had someone in my life who seemed genuinely interested in me. They were always reaching out, always checking in, but looking back, every interaction followed the same pattern. There was always a request, always a need, a favor, advice, emotional reassurance, and I gave freely because I believed in showing up for the people I cared about. But then one day I decided to step back, not in a dramatic way, not in anger, just to observe, to see if they would reach out without needing something from me. And guess what happened? They vanished. No more calls, no more messages. At first it stung, but then I realized they were never really my friend. They were a consumer of my energy, my time, my kindness, and the moment I stopped giving, they had no reason to stay. That realization was freeing the lesson. Not everyone who walks with you is walking for the same reason. Some people are seasonal. Their presence in your life is transactional, not meaningful. And when their needs are met elsewhere, they disappear. So how do you navigate this? Recognize the signs. If someone is only present when they need something, but absent when you need them, take note. Stop chasing people who leave if they disappear. When you stop providing, let them go. Their presence was conditional, and your life is too valuable to be filled with conditional people. Invest in real connections. The strongest relationships are not built on what you can do for someone, but on mutual respect, effort, and care. At the end of the day, people who only stay when they can benefit from you are not a loss. They are a lesson. And the ones who remain, they are the ones who are always meant to free. They're influenced by others. As you grow and evolve, you will inevitably notice shifts in the way people treat you. Some of these changes are direct results of your own transformation. Others, however, have nothing to do with you at all. One of the most frustrating yet revealing experiences is when someone's attitude toward you changes, not because of something you did, but because of what they've been told. One day they are warm, familiar, and present. The next cold, distant, and indifferent, no argument, no incident, just an unspoken shift. And you find yourself wondering what happened is the hard truth. Some people are not independent thinkers. They don't form their own opinions. They allow others to think for them instead of seeking clarity. They listen to whispers instead of valuing personal experience. They trust second-hand judgments. And once those seeds of doubt are planted, they start seeing you not through their own eyes, but through someone else's lens. People like this are easily swayed, not because they are inherently malicious, but because they lack the strength to stand firm in what they know to be true. Think of it like a leaf in the wind. A strong tree remains rooted. No matter how fiercely the wind blows, it does not bend to every passing current. But a weak leaf, it is carried away in whichever direction. The wind dictates. People who are easily influenced are the same. They don't have a foundation of their own, so they allow external forces to dictate what they believe, who they trust, and how they behave. And here's what you must remember. If someone can be convinced to turn against you without questioning the source, they were never truly reliable to begin with. This is where Stoic wisdom comes into play. A mind that can be easily swayed was never truly yours to begin with. Person with real integrity seeks truth, not gossip. They ask, not assume. They clarify, not condemn. So if someone is willing to believe rumors about you without ever seeking your side of the story, consider it a lesson, not a loss. I once had a close friend who suddenly became distant, no warning, no argument, just an unmistakable shift in energy. At first I thought they were simply busy, but then I learned through someone else that they had been told something false about me, and instead of asking me directly, instead of verifying the truth, they simply believed it at that moment. I had two choices: chase after them, trying to explain myself, let them show me who they really were. I chose the latter. I did not defend myself. I did not attempt to correct the rumor. I did not beg them to say the truth. And do you know what happened? Months later, they came back. They had realized the same person who fed them lies about me had also done the same to others, but by then I had already moved on. Because the truth is this: anyone who can be so easily manipulated against you was never truly on your side. So what is the lesson? Do not waste your energy defending yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. If they value the truth, they would have asked for it. If they cared enough to seek clarity, they would have given you that opportunity, but they didn't. And that tells you everything you need to know. People with weak minds will always be susceptible to influence, gossip, and manipulation. Real friends, they don't let others dictate how they see you. At the end of the day, you don't lose real people, you only lose illusions. So let the weak-minded drift away and surround yourself with those who have the strength to think for themselves. 4. You've stopped playing by their rules. As we move through life, we inevitably encounter people who seek to influence, control, or manipulate us in subtle ways. At first, it may seem harmless. Small emotional nudges, guilt tripping, or carefully placed expectations that make us feel obligated to respond a certain way. But over time, patterns emerge, and when you finally decide to break free from those patterns, something interesting happens. They pull away. At first, this shift is confusing. Someone who was once close to you becomes distant, they stop reaching out, stop including you, and may even act cold or indifferent. You might wonder, did I do something wrong? But when you take a step back, you realize their behavior didn't change because of something you did to hurt them. It changed because you stopped letting them control you. The truth is, some people only stay connected to you as long as they can dictate how you think, how you act, and how you respond. The moment you stop tolerating their guilt trips, their emotional games, or their subtle need for control, they begin to fade away. Not because you change in a negative way, but because they lost the ability to influence you. They were never interested in a relationship based on mutual respect. They wanted a dynamic where they held the power, where your thoughts, your emotions, and even your choices were subtly shaped by them. Think of it like a puppet with cut strings. A puppeteer can only manipulate a puppet as long as the strings remain attached. But what happens when the strings are cut, the puppet no longer moves the way they want it to. And instead of adapting to this change, the puppeteer walks away because without control, they lose interest. This is exactly how manipulators operate the moment you stop reacting the way they expect. When you refuse to give in to guilt, when you set boundaries, when you stand firm in your values. They withdraw not because you did something wrong, but because they no longer hold the power in the relationship. This is where Stoic wisdom offers clarity. The price of independence is the loss of those who wanted you. Dependent, true. Independence isn't just about external freedom. It's about internal strength. It's about the ability to stand firm in your principles even when it costs you relationships. Because the reality is, not everyone will celebrate your independence. Some people only value their connection with you because they had control over you. When you take that control away, they leave. But here's the lesson. That's not a loss, that's a blessing. I once had someone in my life who constantly tried to shape the way I responded to situations if I disagreed with them. They'd guilt trip me if I set a boundary. They'd accuse me of being unfair for a long time. I played along. I told myself, maybe if I just keep the peace, things will get better. But one day, something shifted. I stopped explaining myself. I stopped justifying my decisions. I simply stood my ground, and their response. They vanished. No conversation, no argument, just distance. At first, it felt like a loss. But over time, I realized it wasn't a loss at all. It was freedom. Because anyone who only stays in your life when they can control you was never truly with you in the first place. So when people pull away because they can no longer dictate your thoughts, your actions, or your emotions, let them go. Their absence is not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you are moving in the right direction. 5. They feel intimidated by your growth as you evolve. As you push yourself towards something greater, you will notice a shift. Some people will distance themselves not because you have wronged them, not because you have changed in a negative way, but because your progress makes them uncomfortable. They liked you when you were just like them, when your ambitions, your habits, and your mindset aligned with theirs. But the moment you start rising, challenging yourself, embracing self-improvement, reaching for more, it unsettles them. It's not that they despise your success. They despise what your success forces them to see in themselves. Your growth serves as a mirror, reflecting back everything they could be, but aren't willing to work for. Some people would rather let go of a relationship than confront their own stagnation. It's easier to say you've changed than to admit I've stayed the same. Imagine climbing a mountain with a friend. At first, the journey is effortless. You walk side by side, engaged in conversation, moving. Together, the pace is even the path familiar, but then something shifts. You start pushing harder, climbing faster, challenging yourself, and suddenly they begin to lag behind. They complain about the difficulty they suggest, turning back, or worse, they start resenting you for continuing forward. Then without warning, they stop altogether. They look at you and say you're not the same anymore, but what they really mean is, I can't keep up. And instead of pushing myself, I'd rather stay behind. And this is where Stoic wisdom offers clarity. Do not shrink to make others comfortable grow, and let them choose to keep up your growth. It's not an attack on anyone. It is not a betrayal. It is not arrogance. It is not something you need to apologize for. It is simply a test, a natural filter that reveals who is willing to rise with you and who would rather remain where they are. I once had a close friend who for years shared the same ambitions, the same routines, the same outlook on life. But then something shifted. I became deeply focused on self-improvement. I started reading more, setting bigger goals, restructuring my habits. I began to change not in a way that made me superior, but in a way that made me more disciplined, intentional, and aware at first. He encouraged me. That's amazing, man. Keep going. But as I continued growing, his energy changed. He started making subtle remarks. Oh, so now you're better than us, said in a joking tone, but with a sharp edge. Then the small jabs turned into distance. You're too busy for me now. And eventually I noticed something. He was no longer celebrating my growth. He was looking for ways to downplay it. So I asked him, hey, I feel like things are different between us. What's going on? He shrugged. You've just changed, man. I don't know. It's like you're trying too hard. And that's when I realized I hadn't changed too much. He had stayed the same. Instead of being inspired, he was intimidated. And rather than growing, he chose to step away. And that's okay, because not everyone is meant to continue the journey with you. Some people will remain where they are comfortable, unchanged, unwilling to challenge themselves. And when that happens, you have two choices. 1, shrink yourself to make them comfortable. 2, keep growing and let them decide whether to keep up or let go. The truth is, growth comes with a price. That price is often the loss of those who refuse to grow with you. But here's what you must remember. Real friends won't just keep up with you. They will push you even higher. 6, you've exposed their true nature as you grow, as you refine your character, and as you embrace a life of clarity and self-awareness. Something inevitable happens. You start seeing people for who they truly are, not who they pretend to be, not who you wish they were, but who they really are. And when that happens, many of them will leave, not because you push them away, not because you wrong them, but because they can't exist in a space where their dishonesty, their selfishness, or their manipulation no longer works. Some people rely on deception to maintain relationships. They survive on half-truths. They build their connections on hidden motives. And the moment you see through it, they run because now they have a choice, change, and face their own flaws. Leave and avoid accountability. And most people, they choose to leave because it's easier to disappear than to confront their own dishonesty, easier to call you difficult than to acknowledge their own deceit, easier to say you changed than to admit I can no longer manipulate you. The moment you expose someone's true nature, you don't lose them, they lose the ability to control you. Think of it like turning on a light in a dark room. Imagine walking into a dimly lit space. Everything seems fine until you flip on the light. Suddenly you see the dust, the mess, the disorder that was hidden in the shadows. You cannot see it. That's exactly what happens when you recognize someone's true nature. The moment truth enters the equation, those who thrived in manipulation and falsehoods have only one option: escape. They'll say, you've changed. But what they really mean is, you stop letting me take advantage of you. And this is where Stoic wisdom brings clarity. The truth offends only those living a lie. A person who is honest, accountable, and genuine has nothing to fear from truth. But those who thrive on deception, they will hate it because truth exposes them. I remember someone in my life who always played the victim. Every problem, never their fault. Every conflict, someone else's doing, and for a long time I believed them. I defended them, I gave them the benefit of the doubt, but over time, small things stopped adding up. Little inconsistencies, subtle contradictions, moments where the mask slipped. So one day, I decided to do something different. I stopped blindly accepting their stories. I started asking direct questions, and their reaction instant defensiveness. Suddenly, I was being too harsh, I was overanalyzing, I was not the same person anymore, and then they vanished. No explanation, no discussion, just distance. Because once I stopped playing along, they had nothing left to gain, and that's when I understood the truth doesn't destroy real relationships, it only destroys the false ones. So when someone disappears from your life after you've seen through their deception, do not mourn their absence. You didn't lose them. You lost an illusion, and that is never a loss. It is a liberation. So let them go and continue walking your path with clarity, integrity, and strength. 7. It's a blessing in disguise. At some point in life, you will experience rejection, not in the form of harsh words or direct confrontation, but in silence. Someone who was once present will suddenly become absent. Messages that were once answered instantly will now sit. Unread conversations that flowed easily will fade into nothing. And when this happens, it stings. You begin questioning yourself. Did I do something wrong? Did I say something to push them away? Was I not enough? The silence can feel like a wound, like an invisible weight pressing on your chest. But what if I told you that this isn't a loss at all? What if I told you that being ignored is not rejection? It's a filter. People who suddenly distance themselves, who stop acknowledging you without reason, are revealing something important. They were never truly meant to stay. And instead of mourning their absence, what if you saw it for what it really is? A gift in disguise. Nature offers us the perfect example. A tree does not cling to its leaves in autumn, mourning each one that falls. It does not resist the change. It simply lets go, understanding that this shedding is necessary for new, stronger growth in the spring. And that is exactly how life works. Some people in your life are seasonal. They were never meant to grow with you long term. They served a temporary role, perhaps as a lesson, a reflection, or a stepping stone, but they were not meant to stay. So when they walk away or when they choose to ignore you, they are not taking something from you. They are making space for the right people to enter your life. This is where Stoic wisdom comes into play. Do not grieve those who walked away. Be grateful they reveal themselves, because if someone can so easily ignore your presence, it means they never truly valued it. And that is not a loss, that is clarity. I once had a friend who was always around until they weren't. No argument, no fallout, just silence at first. I felt confused, even hurt. I wondered if I had done something to push them away. I considered reaching out, trying to fix something. I didn't even understand. But then I made a choice. I didn't chase. I let the silence exist. And as days turned into weeks, I began to see the truth. I had always been the one keeping the friendship alive. I had always been the one initiating, putting in effort, maintaining the connection. And the moment I stopped, they didn't even notice. And that was my answer. I hadn't lost a real friend. I lost the illusion of one that silence. I once feared it was the truth. I never knew I needed the truth that some people were only present because I made it effortless for them to be there. And when I stopped carrying the weight of the relationship, they simply drifted away because they were never truly invested to begin with. So the question is, why chase those who have already shown you that your presence meant nothing to them? True connections don't require endless effort. They don't require proving, chasing, or forcing. They just exist naturally, effortlessly, mutually. So when someone walks away, let them. Their absence is not something to fear. It is something to be grateful for. Because those who ignore you, they just made room for the ones who truly see you. Life has a way of filtering out those who were never truly meant to stay. The moments of silence, the sudden distance, the unanswered messages, these are not punishments, they are revelations. They show you who is truly aligned with your growth and who was only there for convenience. And while it may feel painful at first, understand this. What leaves your life makes space for what is meant to arrive. So do not mourn those who walk away. Do not chase those who choose to ignore you. Your journey is not meant to be a place where people come and go at their convenience. It is a path meant for those who have the strength to walk beside you. And as you continue on this journey of self-discovery, resilience, and personal growth, remember that the only approval you ever need is your own. If this message resonated with you, if you found value in these insights, take a moment to subscribe to this channel. This is a space for those who seek wisdom, who embrace growth, and who choose to walk the path of self-mastery. Join us on Modern Stoic Life, where we explore the principles of strength, clarity, and discipline in a world that constantly tests them. And if this video spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The world does not need more people seeking validation. It needs more people seeking truth. I'll see you in the next video. Keep growing, keep rising.